Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today's topic is going to be the latest iteration of the Hero's Path, specifically the Halloween path, associated, of course, with the Sanguine Maria fusion, but also the opportunity to get yourself a 5-star soul for Raphael and or April O'Neil. So, of course, we're still in the midst of the collaboration between Raid and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so that is kind of the theme for the event. But, of course, it's also, going into the Halloween season. I think this path ends just before it, but nonetheless, it's kind of inspired by that with the pumpkin points, or whatever we want to call them here. But in order to get said pumpkin points, great segue, it is going to be a Gear Hunters, also known as Dungeon Divers, and a Summon Rush, i.e. Summoning Champion. So you can see here we have the pretty standard table here in terms of getting yourself some points from running dungeons and or running the campaign. The shields from stage 12-3 definitely do count. And then at the bottom here you have the different amounts you can get from each type of shard. Now, of course, most people are automatically drawn to Sacred Shards being worth 4,500. That is typically how people get the bulk of their points, at least, quickly. But don't count out pulling some Void Shards, 750 a pop, and some Ancient Shards, definitely pulling 300 a pop, just because many times for these sorts of Heroes Path, I've definitely opted more for Ancients, just because you pull 100, and that's 30,000 points, which could be all of what you need depending upon what your goals are. And then honorable mention to Mystery Shards. Yes, it's only a measly 3 for each Mystery Shard, but most people, like myself, have a ton of Mystery Shards, so if you just want to crank through them in a quick session, then you can get a decent amount of points from that as well. And the one thing to note here is that typically the Primal Shards are worth 1,800 points a pop. In this case, it's 50% higher for no particular reason, and they're at 2,700 a pop. So interesting to note there, but Primals are a little bit stronger in this particular instance. So taking a look at the path itself, it is pretty straightforward. First thing I always look for is, are there keys, and where do the keys take us? So in this case, there are only 2 keys, and the 2 keys take us down the center, and you will need the keys in order to get any and all of the fragments for the fusion. So you have 25 under the first key, and then you have the other 50 bonus underneath the second key. Aside from that, though, you can see the clear delineation between one's goals, meaning that if you're going for the fragments, you're going to have to go in a completely separate way than if you're going for the souls. There's no synergy there. There's no points along the way, I guess I should say. But yeah, the far left and the far right hand sides, if you follow that path straight down, you'll come to either the 5-star soul for Raph on the left hand side or the 5-star soul for April on the right hand side. Now, obviously, if you happen to have both champions, definitely the 5-star soul for Raphael is more useful, just because Raphael is a more useful champion, in my opinion. But, if you're just a big spender and you want to get out there, you could definitely try to go for both souls, but we're not going to be talking about that option today. But yeah, 4-star is more important for Raph, but since the only option is up to a 5-star, you might as well go for the 5 just because, but he doesn't really need the accuracy or resistance. The attack from the 2-star and the crit damage from the 4-star are what benefit him the most. But I guess maybe you could argue that the 5-star also gives you the improved blessing effect. So depending on what your choice was, that might be a good option for him as well. Now, in this particular instance, I've identified a handful of paths that might be enticing depending upon your immediate goals and, of course, your approach to the fusion. If you're not going for the fusion, of course, you can ignore the fragments and just focus on getting the soul, but I digress. So the cheapest thing you could do is just get yourself 25 of the fragments. So you would come down either the left hand or the right hand side. Make sure that you bank towards the center here, pick up the key, and then come back up through the center, unlock this, and then you'd get the 25 fragments, and that will cost you a grand total of 18,250 points. The next step up would be, I'm not going for the fusion, and I just want to get myself a legendary tome. That would be just coming literally down at the left hand or the right hand side, straight shot to the legendary tome. That would be 24,750 points. Switching back to the fragment, if you were thinking of going for 50, the way this path is laid out, there's no real reason to not go for the last 25 there. So I'm just going to skip to going for 75. They're only 4,000 points different anyways. But essentially, you do exactly what you would have done for the 25 fragments, except that now you have to go down both left hand and right hand side, bank towards the center, grab both of the keys, come down the center again, go through the 4-star basalt, and then you get your 75 fragments in total for a grand total of 46,250 points. And then last but not least, you can go for one of the champion souls. I will note here that there's 2 ways to do this. The cheaper way, the one I'll mention here, is if you're coming down the left hand or the right hand side. You bank through the center and then come around the legendary tome, but not through it. That will be 67,750 points, but it would be slightly more expensive and potentially just better value to go for it through the legendary tome. But that's up to you if you're trying to min max or if you just want to get the best rewards, or maybe you're comparing the relic fragments versus the legendary tome, depending upon your needs. As always, that is a bunch of numbers, so let's look at that in a more digestible format here into the spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box down below. We're specifically in the Heroes Path Calculator tab. So in this case, the relevant section is of course the Gear Hunters event, or Gear Hunters section, and we have all the values corresponding to each of the major dungeon stages that people farm. So normal stage 20, 24, 25, hard stage 6, and stage 10. And you can see the average coins you're going to be getting per run or per energy, depending on how you want to look at it. And then you have the equivalent values for running the campaign. But as I always mention when it comes to these things, Dungeon Divers is more of an accessory, icing on the top of the cake type of thing. This is not going to be the way you complete the majority or get the majority of the points in the event. That would cost a ridiculous amount of energy that most normal people will not have access to over the course of the Heroes Path. So think of this as kind of a filler in terms of getting points. Maybe you'll walk away with 6,000, 7,000-ish Divers credits by the end of the 4 days, but predominantly it is going to be a summon rush. So let's focus over there. So over here, I have the 4 options that we talked about: legendary tome, 2 iterations of the fragments, and then the champion soul. Either one, again, I'm not focusing on getting both because I don't think that's, most people are going to be interested in that. But the main takeaway here is just the amount of shards you're going to have to take in each tier. And of course, you can mix and match, do some math here to mix the different shard types depending upon how many you might have. You might not have 11 sacreds, for example, to get all of the 75 fragments. So kind of pick and choose how you want to go about it. But the main highlights here: legendary tome, if you wanted to get that, 6 sacreds is about on par, maybe a little bit cheaper than where a legendary tome is typically located in a summon rush equivalent. Getting the 25 fragments would just cost you 5, which is a little bit cheaper than the 25 in the initial summon rush. I think that was at 3,000 points, which was 6 sacred. So this is slightly cheaper. And then, like I mentioned in my fusion plan guide, that there's a potential for just better value overall going for the Heroes Path instead of the summon rush, because you can pull the 5 to get the 25, but then you pull up to 6 more and then you get 75 in total, meaning that now I can skip events. I could skip the champion chase, I could skip the summon rush, and etc. And so you get a lot more bang for your buck, even though it is more costly. But again, that depends upon your shard stack and how you want to approach it. Now, in terms of what I plan to do in this particular instance, I kind of hinted at it in my fusion plan video, but my goal was to go just for the fragments, and the amount of fragments I was going to go for was dependent upon the layout of the Heroes Path. And as I mentioned earlier, it makes 0 sense to go for 50 versus 75 because you're going to be right next to it anyways, and it's only 4,000 points difference. So my goal here is to get all 75 of the fragments, and then I can kind of pick and choose which of the fusion events I would then want to skip as a result of that. Now, that being said, because we have a full 4 days to work on this, I'm going to be waiting to pull my shards, whatever they may be, until the last day. So we're going to be doing, I think, the Spider tournament just started in terms of the fusion events. So I'm going to be working on Spider for the next few days, and then I'm going to get as many Dungeon Divers points as possible in those 4 days, and then just pull my shards on the last day, whatever the remainder is for getting all the way out to the 75 fragments in total. Again, my suspicion, because this is a middle of the week shard event, that there's going to be something special going on. I don't think at the moment there is a progressive chance event, so that may not be the case necessarily. But I just have a sneaking suspicion. I could absolutely be wrong, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there is going to be a sacred pogo for maybe the last 2 days of this Heroes Path. We'll see if that comes to be, but that would be great for me. So that's another reason why I'm in particular holding off on pulling my shards until later in the Heroes Path. In terms of a formal recommendation for all of you, again, if you're going for the fusion, I do recommend at least trying to get the 25 fragments. If you plan to get 50, definitely go for the 75. That makes the most sense, just given their proximity. If you're not doing the fusion, then you could potentially go for the soul or the legendary tome, or just skip this entirely. If you don't have either of the champions, that doesn't really matter. Their soul is pointless, and they're exclusive champions, meaning that they won't come back in the future, at least as far as we know. So their souls would literally be useless, or could literally be useless for the rest of time. And yeah, so it kind of depends how you want to play it, but I do recommend that you kind of follow my example here, where you just do focus on Dungeon Divers, Gear Hunters for the next few days, and then that will minimize the amount of shards you have to pull. But if you're super impatient, you really want the whatever rewards now, by all means, go ahead, play how you want to play, and collect your rewards on the first day. So yeah, that's going to do it for the free-to-play review of the Halloween path. Let me know in the comment section down below what your plan is relative to this path. Are you going for the fusion? And if so, which which amount of fragments do you want to get from this. The bare minimum, as we talked about in the fusion plan, is 25, just because the Dungeon Divers aspect, you can effectively think of it as what you would need to do regardless. Or this is overriding Dungeon Divers 2, what would have been Dungeon Divers 2. Or are you not caring about the fusion, you're skipping it, and you're just going all in for the Raphael Soul, assuming you went for the guaranteed event. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, really does help out the channel, and also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel, for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.